The Gallic Wars were waged between 58 and 50 BC by the Roman general Gaius Julius Caesar against the peoples of Gaul. At the time, Gaul consisted of present-day France, Belgium, parts of Germany, and parts of the United Kingdom. Gallic, Germanic, and British tribes fought to defend their homelands against an aggressive Roman campaign. In the year 52 BC, Julius Caesar was campaigning in Gaul for 6 long years, trying to implement Roman rule through conquest and diplomacy. Following Caesar's defeat at Gergovia, the Arverni and other Gallic tribes gained confidence following their victory over the Romans and the destruction of Rome's 14th legion in an ambush laid by the Gauls. With the news of this Gallic victory, dissent began to spread throughout Gaul, leading to an uprising led by the Gallic general Vercingetorix. After a series of battles across Gaul, Caesar had pinned down the Arverni and other Gallic tribes in a fortified village known as Alesia. Under Caesar's orders, the Romans had built 2 walls of fortification, one to trap Vercingetorix and his army within the city of Alesia, thus cutting off any supply lines to his army, and the second outer wall was built to defend against any Gallic reinforcements. It was estimated by Caesar himself that the Arverni and other Gallic tribes numbered some 250,000 men, while Caesar commanded a much smaller force of 60,000 men. Upon the Romans' construction of the fortifications, Vercingetorix had sent word out to other Gallic tribes nearby for aid, including to Vercingetorix's cousin Vercingetorix. In the meantime, Vercingetorix and his forces are fully surrounded by the Romans. With supply lines being cut off, they now must sit and wait until reinforcements can arrive before they have any hope of defeating the Romans in their fortified position. Caesar knows that Alesia will soon expect large numbers of Gallic reinforcements. He must now prepare his men to face an attack on 2 fronts, a difficult task even for a military tactician such as Julius Caesar. If the Romans are defeated at Alesia, it would mean the end of Roman rule in Gaul and the annihilation of Caesar's army. At early dawn on September 52 BC, the Gallic reinforcements had arrived. Skirmishers and Gallic cavalry led the lines in the oncoming assault. Gallic cavalry were known to be superior to that of the Roman cavalry. However, Caesar had auxiliary and mercenary cavalry from Germania, whom were known to be the best cavalry in the region at the time. Caesar sent out his auxiliary cavalry and Germanic elite cavalry to repel the Gallic skirmishers. The Germanic cavalry were able to quickly outflank the Gauls cavalry and charge down the Gallic skirmishers. The Gallic tribes were unprepared for the swiftness and superiority of Caesar's Germanic cavalry, and were soon outmaneuvered and sent retreating back to the main Gallic force. By midday, the full force of the tribes of Gaul marched on Alesia. Caesar had to stretch his lines out thinly to cover the entirety of the fortified barricade, which separated his army from being fully surrounded. The Romans began firing ballista and arrow fire on the oncoming tribes, hoping to slow down their advances. The main Gallic force was commanded by Vercingetorix, Vercingetorix's cousin. Vercingetorix focused the majority of his force on a long section of the Roman fortifications, hoping to break through with sheer force and numerical advantage. Arrows and pylons rained down on the Gauls as they approached the fortifications. The Gallic tribes managed to breach the fortifications at multiple points, engaging with the Roman legionnaires in brutal hand-to-hand combat. This favoured the Roman legionnaires, as the legionnaires were disciplined, better trained, and better equipped than the Gallic soldiers. The Roman soldiers fought with a large shield to protect the majority of their bodies, while they were able to stab and slash with a short and very sharp blade called the gladius. The Romans also fought as a unit as opposed to individuals like the Gauls, while simultaneously rotating their ranks to keep each Roman soldier fresh while fighting. More Gallic tribes soon began attacking from different directions, forcing the Romans to spread their forces. Caesar rode through his ranks, organizing and moving his legionnaires to wherever there were weak points. Meanwhile, at the main engagement led by Vercingetorix, the Romans are being pushed hard, with some of the Gallics managing to force themselves within the inner fortifications. This section of the wall was commanded by the young Mark Antony, one of Caesar's trusted commanders at the time. Caesar ordered his Germanic cavalry to charge at any of the breaching points where the Gallics were able to push through, the cavalry charges having some initial success with holding back the breaches. Caesar continued to ride through his ranks, moving his soldiers to different points where needed, while offering morale support wherever he can. Auxiliary cavalry continued to charge any breaching points, ensuring that the Gallics don't break through and overwhelm the legionnaires. Mark Antony and his personal guard charge into the battle lines, aiding the legionnaires to push back Vercingetorix's overwhelming force. As the battle continues, both sides began to amass casualties, giving the advantage to the Gallics. Vercingetorix finally realized that the Roman force was fully surrounded. He ordered his force to march from the city of Alesia and attack the inner fortifications. Noticing the attack from the inner fortifications, Caesar reacts by gathering any available soldiers he can muster to defend the inner walls. Vercingetorix's force is now assaulting the inner walls, while simultaneously the Gallic forces attack the outer walls, forcing the Romans to fight on both fronts. Though even against the odds and under immense pressure, the trained Roman soldiers continued to display great discipline and continued on fighting bravely. The Gauls finally breached the Roman defences, leading Caesar to rally as many men as can be spared to support the main breaches. With the Romans now being fully surrounded, they're unable to maneuver out of this situation. The Romans are now fully surrounded, and if they cannot maneuver out of this situation, their army will soon crumble. As the situation worsens for the Romans, Caesar, in a last-ditch effort to salvage the battle and his army, gathers all of the Germanic auxiliary cavalry and charges them outside of the fortifications and into the rears and flanks of the engaged Gallic soldiers. The sheer volume, speed and power of the charging Germanic cavalry creates fear and anguish among the Gallic ranks. This last-ditch maneuver by Caesar works to near perfection, causing the Gallic ranks to break in fear and begin retreating. The Gauls were not aware that they were winning the battle, and that this maneuver was a desperate last-ditch effort by Caesar and the Romans to try and break the Gauls' morale and spirit. The sight of seeing the main Gallic force fleeing causes panic throughout the rest of the Gallic army, and a mass retreat soon begins, leaving Vercingetorix and his army left to fight the Romans by themselves, thus eventually being pushed back into the city of Alesia and then soon after surrendering. The sources for the losses on both sides are fully unknown, though it is estimated by Caesar himself that the Romans had lost up to 12,000 soldiers, while the Gauls had lost up to 200,000. Though these estimates cannot be confirmed as truly accurate, as Caesar may have been biased in his report. Upon the defeat of the Gauls, Vercingetorix had surrendered himself to Caesar in exchange for the life of his men. Caesar accepted his request, and Vercingetorix was sent to Rome as a prisoner. Mark Antony had proven himself to Caesar during the battle and became Caesar's right-hand man from that point until Caesar's death in 44 BC.